Today I will be showing you the components of my mid-18th century riding habit. I made the entire costume from scratch and hope that this might be a helpful guide for other hobbyists looking to venture into the 18th century. So let's get started. The first step is always the chemise, which functions as both underwear and nightgown. The chemise protected the outer layers from sweat and oils produced by the body, since these outer layers were often delicate and expensive and wouldn't hold up to rigorous and frequent washing. The next is an under petticoat. This was added for extra warmth and extra fluffiness for the skirts. Really, when it comes to the 18th century, there was no such thing as too many petticoats. Like the rest of my petticoats, this is pleated at the waist and fastens at the front and the back with tapes. Next up are the stays. Mine are back lacing, with the spiral lacing typical of the period, which means I need a lady's maid to give me a hand. My lady's maid is camera shy, and so she laced me up off camera. Stays are worn over the chemise and are designed to support the bust in the back, give the classic conical silhouette, and protect the body from pins used to fasten dresses. Luckily for me, the riding habit I've made is fashioned after men's clothing of the day, which uses hooks, eyes, and buttons instead of long pins. But I'll get into that later. Despite modern preconceptions, stays are actually very comfortable, extremely supportive, and not at all restrictive. You'll notice the range of motion that I can achieve in these stays is quite considerable. After that, possibly my funniest accessory, the bum roll. Many different skirt supports were used throughout the 18th century, but I opted for a bum roll because I like the fullness it gives to the petticoats and the riding jacket. It also seems a more sensible skirt support for riding, especially when compared to the other options, which include bulky hoops and panniers. Now it's time to continue layering on the petties. The first one is made of cotton, pleated again at the waist and fastened with tapes. This allows the wearer to reach one hand into the petticoats to access a pocket, which unfortunately I don't have. Next is a shirt. You'll notice that this is a rather manly style, and this is because riding attire was meant to be a feminized version of men's fashion. A shirt is an essential part of the man's wardrobe. This shirt is constructed with the same general plan. It has big fluffy sleeves and is fastened at the neck with a cravat and buttons, and with buttons at the cuffs. The lady's shirt differs from the gentleman's in only a few respects, namely in its length, as it is much shorter than the average man's shirt, and the fact that, like the petticoats, it also makes use of waist tapes. The cravat is the simplest part of the outfit. It's wrapped around the throat, over the collar, and then secured. Some cravats were very fancy and made of beautiful fabric trimmed with lace. This one is simpler and, I think, more appropriate for a soldierly aesthetic. The next petticoat is made of the same red wool I used for my waistcoat and jacket. Again, it is pleated at the waist and fastened at the front and the back with tapes. Notice how the heaviness of the wool gives a very pleasing sort of drape and swoosh. It's also very warm, perfect for staying toasty when out for a ride. Over this goes the waistcoat. You can see that this is being fashioned after the men's style of the period. Likewise, it is fastened with buttons, which is a big relief. No pinning this to my stays. To save on cost, both men's and women's waistcoats were made of contrasting fabric. Fine fabric on the front and cheaper, rougher stuff on the back. Today, many waistcoats still have wool fronts and satin backs in this tradition. Many waistcoats also had spiral lacing on the back to further adjust their fit. Notice the importance of the stays here. This close-fitting garment still lays flat over my bust, without the use of even a single dart, as my bust has been compressed and lifted. And then my favorite part, the jacket. Like the waistcoat, this has been modeled after a man's regimental uniform. Despite the fact that some men disliked these so-called mannish styles, fashion-forward ladies often had riding habits made to mimic their husband or lover's regimental uniform. As you can see, the riding jacket can be worn closed or open, but I prefer open to show off the beautiful gold braid and buttons on the waistcoat. The closures are hooks and eyes, and not the buttons on the lapels. Next up is something I didn't make, but I still really like. A pair of gloves. These were essential to keep the lady's hands warm and also to help her grip the reins of her horse. Lastly, a cocked hat finishes the look. Complete with gold trim and a little cockade, this is a man's tricorn made fashionable for a lady. And that's all. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and if you feel like it, buy me a coffee. All the information will be down in the description box below. Take care, and see you next time.